Hello everyone, welcome to this video. This video really accompanies a session I did for Teams Day Online, and in this video I want to take a closer look at the components I described during that session. The session was on Teams governance, including things like data loss prevention, information barriers, but also setting a secure or governance baseline for using Teams. So let's take a look at the components I described in this session. Okay, one of the most important things for your governance baseline is to decide who's going to be able to create a new team. By default, everyone within your organization has the ability to create a team, and that's because the underlying architecture of Teams, which is nowadays called Microsoft 365 Groups, allows group creation by members of your organization. Group creation is not only limited to Teams. The architecture of those groups are that Planner, Stream, and modern SharePoint sites, for instance, also have groups attached. So creating a group also enables people to create more functionality. If you do not want your Teams environment to have that level of self-service, you can use Office security groups to manage your Teams environment, and you are going to need several components for that. First of all, you're going to need a Azure AD security group. You create the group, you add your members to that group, and then that's going to be the group that's going to be able to create teams. And to enable that, you will need a PowerShell script. Over here I have that script. I've got a link in the in this presentation as well to where you can find this PowerShell script by Microsoft. But what this does, it sets some settings to the so-called unified groups settings of AD, and those are the Microsoft 365 groups. So over here you see that in my tenant I have the enable group creation set to false, which normally would be true, but this at the moment states that group creation is only allowed for specific groups, which is this one over here, group creation allowed group ID, and this is my AD group, my security group in AD, who is allowed to create teams. So having done that, I've set my first big step in governance of Microsoft Teams. The other thing you might want to consider, if you are going to allow people to really create their own teams, is to look at a naming convention or naming policy. This is part of Azure AD Premium 1, but does allow you to really manage how people name their teams, and even to block specific items in Teams names. It can be found here in Azure AD. In my groups overview, I have a naming policy, and when I go there I have two options. First of all, I can add several blocked words, which are words which cannot be used within the Teams creation, for example HR or management or confidential or you name it. And the second is a group naming. That's the group naming. Those are the blocked words, sorry for that. The group naming policy basically says how does the team name, which is the name underwater, if you will, needs to look like. So I can add a prefix, for example. This can be something I create myself, for example, demo. I also can have, for example, a suffix, for example, an attribute, and this attribute comes from Active Directory and is based on the person who creates the team. So let's say I want his office as well. So this really does depend on Azure AD, of course. So I'm happy with that, and I'll just save it, and over here you'll see what my group name and my team's name will look like. So this is another important part of that governance for team creation. Another part for team creation is working with sensitivity labels, for example. So let's take a look how that works. For example, I'm going to create a team, and I've set up several sensitivity labels as well. So let's say I build a team from scratch, and over here I want to select a label, and please note what it will do for my privacy settings. I'll just submit a Teams confidential, and over here, there you go, it states I only can choose private, and that's because in this sensitivity label I've configured this label to restrict access to any team to the private level. So this is another thing which you can take into account when drawing up your governance for Teams creation. Another aspect for team creation, which needs to be part of your governance plan, is how to work with external users. Do they need access to your team's environment? And we'll go into this at the other video, but just to show you where you can find those settings within Azure AD, because that's where you're going to find those settings. Here I have my Azure AD, and over here I have a option called user settings. If I go over there, you can say that a lot of things people can do within your AD. What we want to look at is these settings, the manage external collaboration settings. And if we go there, then here you'll find the settings for external sharing. These do take effect for Microsoft Teams. So if you have the question, can I just restrict my external sharing to specific domains within Teams? Yes, you can. You can set your collaboration settings over here. For example, I have my Motion 10 domain over here configured to only allow invitations sent to these domains. So this is basically how you can set that external sharing setting. Well, with this external sharing settings, we've basically looked at the creation part of governance for Teams, and in my next videos I'll go into security and settings for Teams, like meeting policies and other governance items. So thank you very much for now. Thank you for your attention for this video. Here are some links which might help you take your first steps for really doing your Teams governance, and I hope you will be visiting my site again. Thank you.